but I wanted to ride and something was calling me to it and I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't know why. It didn't make sense. But now, like, I know that the things that don't make sense is what you should pay attention to.
Hey there. Welcome back to the Mischief Movement podcast. I'm Zoe, your guide on this journey to shake up the status quo and design a life that truly makes you feel alive. If you've ever felt disconnected, stuck on autopilot, or trapped in a life that feels more like a treadmill than an adventure, you're in the right place. I know that change can feel scary, so let's turn down the fear and crank up the fierce as we transform your life from the inside out. Whether it's solo episodes packed with actionable advice or interviews with some absolute badass human beings who've dared to defy the norm by living life their way, we're here to inspire, activate, empower, and challenge you each week. My mission is simple: to help you reawaken your rebel spirit, break free from mediocrity, and design a life that's anything but dull. You only get one wild life, so what are you planning to do with yours? If you're ready to stop settling, start living boldly, and create a positive impact along the way, let's dive in and stir up some mischief together. Now buckle up and let's go. Get ready, because this week we've got Melissa Hussong, mindset coach, motorcycle aficionado, and all-round badass. She's someone who didn't just dream of changing her life, she actually did it, boldly kicking imposter syndrome to the curb and riding her way into a life of purpose, freedom, and full-on adventure. Imagine this: a solo 10,000 kilometre motorcycle journey across Australia, a no-holds-barred reset that took her from boxed in and burnt out to badass and launched her on a mission to help other women do the same. Melissa's approach, it's refreshingly unapologetic. She's all about cutting through the fluff and diving straight into what holds us back so we can finally start living a life that feels like ours, not someone else's. If you're waking up dreading tomorrow, wondering if there's more, or itching to feel some fire again, Melissa's story is your fuel. You've got the power to change things. And after hearing Melissa's wisdom, you'll know exactly how to start too. So tune in and get ready to turn things up a notch with some insights that are going to inspire, empower, and let's be real, probably make you want to shake things up big time. Well, I'm super excited to have you here with us, Melissa. Or do you prefer that I call you Mel? I'm not sure.
Mel is fine. Yeah, okay. I go by Mel.
Oh, amazing. So Mel, you're joining me today from Australia, which is very exciting because it means that the Mischief Movement is properly going global. Would you like to tell everybody what your mischief is?
Yes, my mischief is motorcycles. And I've been riding for probably like 4 years now. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably first and foremost was my gateway to being more mischievous in my life, starting a business. But it always comes back to motorcycles for me. And it used to feel very because when it was so new to me, it was like I was just crashing through this huge ceiling of being a badass and doing all these new things. But now I have a 1-year-old, and it was funny this morning, he loves my helmet. He loves playing with my motorcycle helmet and the gloves and trying on all the things, and it feels very family friendly now, my mischief. So that's kind of the whole journey from start to now.
I love that, because I also, from a sort of spectator's point of view, feel like that is, like you said, you explained it perfectly, the gateway to everything else that's happened since. Because I was aware of you from the female motorcycle world. Yeah. And then you sort of tentatively stepped out of the motorcycle world and into other things, starting your own business, moving to Australia from the States, becoming a mom, all these things have happened. And it feels like you're almost coming full circle back. And, that there was a move away from the biking for a while. And I mean, you were a mum as well, so that can't have been easy to juggle the two. But you're managing to integrate everything, including the bikes, into what you're doing now.
Yeah, you've been paying attention, Zoe, and like totally I feel like very seen in that comment right now because we've been friends for several years and like basically since that time. And I think when we first met, Zoe, I think I featured your business in my newsletter. Was like I think when we first connected, the
Yeah, was it?
Mischief and
I'm not
High,
sure if
because I was running a
yeah.
motorcycle newsletter and featuring women sort of motorcycle type businesses. And I feel like that was when we first connected. And yeah, so I started with the motorcycle stuff and then I got into mindset coaching and doing all of that. And then I kind of sort of lost my voice for a bit there. I kind of turned down the motorcycle stuff. I was like, that's too much. What I'm going for, people don't resonate with that. Not everyone rides motorcycles, not everyone wants to. And then I was just like, if I'm going to be an online coach, like I have to look like this. I have to do this. I have to be more of this vibe, and toned it down. And then, probably 2 years later, like since I started toning it down, like I've started turning it back up again, and bringing it back into my branding and just more into my content. But yeah, like it was funny how you kind of lose things and come back to them and then you're like, no, like it actually was about this from the beginning. Like I'd forgot about it.
I think that does happen though, and I mean, I speak to a lot of people who are parents, and definitely there's an element of kind of forgetting who you are or what you enjoyed before you became a parent, because it's very all-consuming. And I think that's just a natural thing that happens when you become a parent sometimes. But I also know a lot of people that go through that in life. Things just kind of drop to the wayside because it doesn't feel like the thing is a good fit or the person's a good fit in that particular moment. Yeah. But somewhere along the lines, they go, actually, I used to really love that. Or I was really good at that. Or why haven't I been doing that thing? And they come back to it. And it's almost like a light switches on, no? And they're like, no, I remember who I was now. And that certainly happened for me. I went through a little sort of phase like that where I went, oh my God, I remember who I was now. And I used to love doing all of this kind of adventurous stuff and going out on my own. And I sort of really then tapped back into that sense of adventure. And maybe, I don't know, you've also tapped back into that sense of adventure that and empowerment that you felt when you started riding.
Yeah, definitely. Like riding for me just opened up so many doors of possibility that I had closed on myself at a very young age, right? Like you grow up and you don't do this and you don't do it intentionally. Like none of it is intentional. It's very subconscious and automatic. And you just kind of grow into this box of like, this is who I am. This is neat little package. Don't go outside the lines. Go to the school, get the job. These are your friends. This basically, it's kind of predetermined. Yeah. But like, that's how you want it, right? That's how you want it, air quotes, because that's how you think you want it.
Exactly.
And then you get to a point and there's always like some kind of fall from grace where you're like, what happened? Like for me, it was a health crisis. And then you like kind of come back to who that person was and who you actually want to be and start to kind of backtrack and find all the layers again. But yeah, motorcycling really opened that up. So like when I started to ride, I didn't grow up riding. I didn't have any friends that rode motorcycles. It was very much like stepping into a new identity for me, which was super scary. I was not at that point in my life. Working in corporate, I was like very straight and proper and the good girl, right? Like the perfectionist. But I wanted to ride and something was calling me to it and I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't know why. It didn't make sense. But now, like, I know that the things that don't make sense is what you should pay attention to. So I started riding and I was good at it straight out the gate randomly. Like, it just came very natural to me. And I was like, whoa, like this was possible always? Like, what do you mean I could have always been doing this? What else can I do? And like you said, the light bulb goes off and you're like, hang on, like maybe I can do that. Maybe I can do that. And then one thing leads to another. And it's just like snowballs. And the empowerment was something I had never felt because I felt strong in my body and I felt in control of my life because I was legitimately like in control of a big vehicle, a big engine, like holding the handlebars. And like it's such a beautiful metaphor. And then I started to say, like, well, what if I could do something with this? Like, what if I became a motorcycle coach? And that led to mindset coaching and the business and all of that stuff. But it was definitely the biggest thing that kind of opened up like that whole world of mischief, and you just kind of follow the breadcrumbs.
I love so much about that, from the fact that it didn't feel logical to you. You just felt like it was something that you needed to do and you weren't quite sure why. And the fact that that was then a catalyst for so many other things. And I'm always encouraging people to lean into the things that really make them feel alive. And I think quite recently I've come to realize myself that it's not necessarily because that's going to be your thing. Like, I think for a long time I was very fixated on this idea of finding purpose and finding my thing, you know, and during that exploration of, well, what is my thing? I realized that I love loads of different things, and I'm really sort of coming to love that about myself. And I find myself talking to many other people who are these kind of multi-passionate people with very different interests. So this is something new that I'm kind of exploring. But it's just now that sense of, well, if you lean into something that really lights you up, it is the thing that can then open the doors in all the other directions that you'd never even thought about. And you've just illustrated that so beautifully with the motorcycling. Have you considered this idea of coaching before then, or was it kind of a natural evolution from the motorcycling?
Oh, it was an evolution, 100%. Like, I wouldn't be here with this business, with my business podcast, if I didn't start riding motorcycles.
That's
like,
mad.
No question. I mean, maybe in an alternate universe, like they would have collided and I have found it another way, but I cannot think of an example of how that would happen. But no, the motorcycling was like, something was happening. And like at the time I lived in Minneapolis, Minnesota in the United States. And like, there's just a community of badass, empowered, strong, unapologetic women that were riding motorcycles. And I get chills thinking about that because it's such a beautiful community. It still is. And I'm still tapped in when I go to visit them. But I would say people would be like, Mel, I can't believe you ride motorcycles. Like, OMG, that's not who you are. And it wasn't who I was, but I made that decision that that's like who I was going to be now. Everyone was like, wow, you're so brave, you're so courageous. And I was like, but I'm not. Anyone can do this. Yes, I've made a decision, and yes, it's very obvious because a motorcycle is different from a car. Like it's very visual that I'm doing something different, but anyone can do this in any way at any time, and you don't need permission. It was really a message of empowerment, and I just wanted more women to know that you can take control of your life. You can take control of the handlebars at any time and go wherever you want. Like, it's your life, you create it. And that was a message that I started to kind of bring and help women understand that, like, if they wanted to ride motorcycles, they could. So I started my business in that way, and I was publishing a lot of content, and I published my first online course about the motorcycle mindset and how to get women to ride motorcycles. But then I was like, it can be polarizing. Not everyone wants to ride motorcycles. So like, what in the message resonates beyond the actual activity of riding? Yeah. And it was just the empowerment piece, the mindset piece. And from there, you know, I was setting goals. I was thinking more about entrepreneurship, and that quite naturally led to the mindset coaching, life coaching, that sort of thing. And then, you know, speak about following that thing that you love. Like, I got into that, and the deeper I got into that, I just started understanding business because I've always been obsessed with just reading business books, and like that's just been like a little passion of mine. And then that morphed into a podcast, and now we're like a top 10% podcast globally. So it's just like you just keep pulling the threads. It's like you pull the thread and it leads to another, and it's like it's the process. I think like we're never really finished. You just keep going, and I've like come to see that as really a cool thing. It's all about the process.
I love that, because you're doing that. You're just saying that feels good. I think I'm interested in that. You're not worrying about whether there is a sort of destination to that. And then was it off the back of the podcast that you then were offered the job on radio?
So in this whole probably 3 to 4 year process, like at the very start, I was so shy about asking for what I wanted and advocating for myself. Like I used to be the person, Zoe, where I would sit in my corporate job in meetings with like the big bosses, and I would literally like stare at a piece of paper and avoid eye contact because like I didn't want anyone to talk to me, because I didn't want to be embarrassed if I said the wrong thing, or like if I totally just had a brain fart and like didn't know what to say. I was like so scared of that. So I used to be the person that did not say anything that I wanted. But through this whole like empowerment stuff and the coaching and the business, like I just got comfortable just being like asking questions, being like, hey, can I help you with that? And so the radio show really came up with like, I was on a Zoom call. I was being interviewed for the radio show that I ended up getting. And at the very end, the guy was like wrapping it up. And then I was like, it's now or never. It's now or never. And I was just like, do you mind? I have more content. Like I would be happy to contribute in some way. What do you need? So it happened because I asked for it. And that was a huge lesson, I think, in my life that I need to kind of hold on to more. But it's like, if you want something, ask for it. Give yourself permission. No one's going to wave a wand and be like, Mel, you now have that thing. It's like you gotta ask for it. And he said yes, and now I have like a little business segment that hosts on the radio station where I live now. So
that's amazing.
Gotta ask.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know whether that's a female thing. Or just it depends on an individual character, but I also struggle with that sometimes, and you really have to have that chat with yourself, don't you? It's like you literally can hear yourself go, it's now or never. If you want this thing, move.
Yeah. And it's so uncomfortable because like our body is literally trying to do the opposite. Like our body wants to keep us safe, but there's a voice in your head that's like, Mel, do it, like ask the question. So it's you just got to do it. And but like so much of my business and in the podcast as well, and just being on different shows and having opportunities is like having the courage to just put yourself out there. Super hard, but once you do it, it gets easier and easier and easier.
Does it get easier?
It comes, it's the more levels, right? Because like there's like levels that you keep going up. Okay. So I think it comes back in different ways, the next level, but it's the same thing. It's still that same discomfort, but you just have to, like, you keep ascending these levels. Like the fear never goes away. Like the self-doubt never goes away. It just comes back in a different way.
Do you think that being able to do that, being able to keep going up to the next level is through a sort of constant awareness of your mindset and kind of keeping that in check and making sure that you are, I don't know, really speaking kindly to yourself, really kind of trying to boost your own confidence and make sure that you feel yourself worthy and valued. And I want to say, to sort of keep you on your game, on your A game, you've got to be your biggest advocate, haven't you? And I think sometimes it's that's going to make or break whether you actually get what you want or not. It's the mindset stuff that people aren't seeing, but you're doing in the background.
Yeah. Mindset's a huge piece. But Zoe, like, if I can be totally honest, like, I totally overdo it on the mindset stuff. And I just like, I exhaust myself on like trying to be positive all the time.
Yeah.
I feel like the more light you have and like the more light that you're trying to bring into the world, like, there's a polar opposite. There's also a lot of darkness. So, like, to say that mindset's a huge piece, yes, it is a huge piece because the alternate is like there's a lot of pain involved in staying the same. So I
Yeah.
think like when for me personally, like on my journey, I have such a drive just to like help people. And I feel like if you're in the content, if you're creating any content in the world, like if you're like teaching anyone through your business or anything, if you're just being a parent, let's be real, like you want to do your best and you want to share from the heart, and there is like a drive there. There's like an innate drive there. And for
Yeah.
me, when I think about trying to keep going, is like, yes, the mindset piece, but also like I can't not. Because like if I don't do it, then like the alternative is like so much harder.
Hmm. If you weren't going to kind of keep going with where you are now, what would you be doing?
I don't even know, Zoe. Like, I don't. I think about it a lot because my background, like I went to grad school, I did economics, and I was in a corporate America job doing the, you know, the 9 to 5 thing and in data analytics, and that's so not where I am now. So I don't even know. Like maybe I'd be in a sales job, um, doing something that like I would have control of my time.
Mm,
Like trying to be an entrepreneur without being an entrepreneur, like whatever
yeah.
job that made sense of. Yeah.
Yeah. And how has your coaching business evolved from the days of empowering women in a motorcycle environment to where you are now?
Yeah. Oh gosh. At the start, yeah, I was serving women that wanted to ride motorcycles, and that was really cool and I loved it. And I just started to see patterns in who my clients were, like who I was attracting. And I hadn't done a ton of branding or like none of that was very conscious at the time. I was just like, I love motorcycles. I want to share that with the world. And I started to notice that all of the women I was serving either had businesses and were entrepreneurs or were trying to start side hustles. And I was like,
Okay.
oh, that's really interesting. I didn't really pay
Yeah.
attention at the start. And then I was like, as I kept doing it, I was like, oh, and then they would ask me business questions and I'd help them with that. And around that time, I had started doing a weekly mastermind meeting, which is just a fancy word for like a weekly accountability meeting where you talk about your goals and challenges and kind of brainstorm ideas, share resources. And through that, we were doing a lot of business stuff and just having like really raw, frank conversations about starting businesses, and
Yeah.
successfully had launched several businesses in that time. And then that was kind of like, we're like, oh, this is really helpful. What if we just recorded these conversations so we could help more women with, you know, what we're learning so they can join the journey and listen along and hopefully learn something. So we started a business podcast that's now the top 10% podcast globally. It's called Full Time Freedom. And we still do that to this day, is business stuff. Like a lot of it is real time things that we're learning. And a lot of it is the hard stuff. Now that me and my co-host Jessie are both parents, like we have the parenting piece that comes in, a little bit of
Mm.
lifestyle stuff. But it started as motorcycles, and the current place is the business related thing. And I don't know where we'll be next, but I guess I'm here for it.
Yeah. I love that. I love the fact that your podcast is still very friendly though. You know, it's still very friendly, very informal. It's not businessy. And in fact, I was listening to an episode in which it was a solo one that you did, which was
Aw.
about what would I do if it felt easy? And I love that because that's what I come back to when I start getting overwhelmed. I come back to that question. If I could make this feel really easy, what would it look like? And I found that one sentence, that one question to be so grounding for those moments in which you kind of spinning all the plates and going, oh, but I should be doing this, but I also want to be doing that, but I haven't finished this other thing. And you're like, oh my God, okay, all right, just calm yourself. What would it look like if it was really easy? And also bringing me back to what feels right for me, not what I should be doing, which, is something that we all get sucked into. It's just, oh God, it's just incessant. This, this is the way to build an audience. This is a way to create your social media. This is the way to present yourself as a coach. This is the way to make 10 million pounds. It just goes on, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, it's so exhausting. Like everyone has a framework that is like, you must do this or you will die or your business will fail or you'll be a terrible person. But none of it's true. It's just like, do what is you. Do what lights you up. And for everyone on the planet, it's different. We all have different skills, and like our DNA obviously is different, but that's how I like to think of like content creation. It's like, some people are just very good writers. Some people just naturally gravitate toward podcasting. And it's different for everyone. Some people just crush Instagram Reels. Like, I'm not that person, but I can really appreciate that person. There is a time and a place for that. And everyone is different. But when we try to like squeeze ourselves into like, I feel like my son has a couple toys and it's like that whole like different shapes, and like you have a different ball. It's like you're trying to squeeze the round ball into like the square hole, and it's just not going to work. And so why would we do that to ourselves?
I know,
because it's not worth it. But like when we can look at ourselves and be like, what do I love to do? How can I uniquely share my message with the world? And even if it is different to anyone else out there, that's actually a really amazing thing, because you're unique. And everyone's unique. So how can we express that? And a lot of the time it's like, make it easy. Don't overcomplicate it. Because then you have a million excuses not to do it.
Oh, yes, absolutely that, 100%. And that is also something that I'm sort of leaning into very heavily these days, the idea that there's no point. Not only does it not make sense because you're not going to fit in those little molds, but you're not going to enjoy it either. You're not that person. No. And as far as I can see, the only way to really make the most of this life experience is literally to just be as you can possibly be, and not worry about the frameworks, the methods. We all want to save time. And we all buy into this idea that, somebody's been there, they've done it before, they give me their framework, their blueprint, their experience, then I can do that too. But, it's not going to be the same journey because you're not them.
For so long, I was like, I would always seek out people's frameworks or like buy a course or whatever. And then I'd always be wondering like, but there's got to be something more. Like, it doesn't quite fit my need. Like I was always looking to other people to be like, no, but that's like not exactly what I need. But I just realized sort of recently, it's like, that's because it's not me. Like everyone's going to have their own unique spin on it. Like even if you're teaching something that is a similar topic to someone else, like, but it's not going to hit for someone the way that you can express it. Because like you bring your own experience and your own twist to it, but it's just like, it's okay because like we're all different and that's what we bring to the equation. And I guess that's just one extra piece I wanted to add about how being unique like is the answer.
The answer to everything, yes. So what are you currently working on, or what plans have you got for the rest of the year?
Yes, plans. I feel like it changes every day, Zoe. You have kids as well, so I'm sure you can relate, but it's like being the mom, being the business person and the podcast and like juggling all these balls. So I think at the moment, like today, I guess, is just focusing on the podcast. It's kind of been a runaway train in the best way possible this year. We have seen growth that we never expected. We've started to get
Congratulations.
paid speaking events from it and booking those up for the US in the fall. And yeah, I just think it's for me, like I'm really putting a lot of time and intention behind the things that are taking off.
Yeah.
Like I think so much like in my business in the past, I've always been like trying to force an outcome, like this is going to be my thing, or like this is what I'm about, but just starting to pay more attention to like the universe and the signs and being like, what is hitting for people? Like, what do people respond to right now? What am I getting feedback on? And leaning into those things. And right now, the podcast is definitely one of those.
Yeah. Do you think that those, if you are following the things that are taking off, it's very much for the time being, it's the podcast, but that might change and then it might be the focus on the speaking or the focus on, even just on your child? Do you think it's going to
Yeah.
be sort of in waves of different things?
Yeah, I do. I actually really love that question because I'm always thinking about this topic, and I think it does come in waves, and it does sort of naturally lead to the next thing. It's like with the podcast, that started to take off this year, and then it was like, oh, the speaking thing, maybe that's going to be a thing, and I'm trying to keep my mind open to possibilities. And I always am thinking about possibilities on like how something can work out, or like, sometimes when we're manifesting, it's like we want this one thing. We want like exhibit A, like this is my goal, this is what I've been working towards. And then it's like that abundance just kind of smacks you up the side of the head, and it's like, hey, dummy, like over here, there's this thing that you never even considered that is going to be the thing. So I think more these days I'm trying to keep an open mind and just roll with it and see what comes, and gosh, this is gonna sound silly, but just like how I can serve people the best. Because I don't know everything. I don't know what people want. Like, I'm sure my idea is different to like what someone else's idea is. So I'm just trying to be like, how can I serve the best and be open to that, no matter how it looks.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So where can everybody find out more about you? I'm guessing that now you're in more of a kind of business coaching space, but correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yeah. So I'm doing at the moment business mindset and mentoring. And so my website is herhandlebars.com. And along there, anyone can see the types of stuff that I do. I have a 12-week signature course, Burnt Out to Badass, where I help women entrepreneurs go from like burnt out, overwhelmed, and just totally stressed in the business to feeling totally badass, confident with clarity and cash flow to match. And yeah, otherwise the podcast, that's a free offering that we pour so much love into. Gosh, I love the podcast. It's called Full Time Freedom. We're on any of the major platforms, and that's business, side hustle, mum life, all that stuff. So if anyone already has a business, like I think that one will help you expand it. If you're thinking about having a side hustle, it'll definitely help you launch it. And that's something that I co-host with one of my best friends.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. Let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely. I need to pick your brain for parenting advice.
Oh, God, you're talking to the wrong woman. Sorry. So here's a little rebellious recap for you. Number one, the things that don't make sense, or when you're called to do something that feels illogical, are what you should pay attention to. Two, when you find the courage to try something new, it doesn't matter where it leads, because what matters more is the realization that if you can do that, what else are you capable of doing? Three, keep coming back to the idea of what if. It's a great reframe when you feel scared to do something. Four, anyone can decide to have a go at any time. You don't need permission. It's your life. You create it. Five, we're never really finished. We just keep going. We have to learn to enjoy the process. 6, find the courage to get uncomfortable and put yourself out there, and it will get easier to keep going and up-leveling yourself. 7, when you get overwhelmed, come back to the question, what would I do if it felt easy? Don't overcomplicate it, because then you have a million excuses not to do it. And finally, number 8, if you want something, ask for it. No one is going to hand it to you, so get out there and make it happen. That's a wrap on another episode of the Mischief Movement podcast. If today's content stirred something in you, let's keep in touch on Instagram or connect with me on LinkedIn. You can even click the link in the show notes to sign up to my Mischief Mail newsletter, where you'll get exclusive insights on upcoming episodes and your chance to submit questions to future guests. But shh, don't tell anyone, it's our secret. For more info on ways to work with me and some fun free resources, check out the website themischiefmovement.com. Until next time, stay bold, stay rebellious, and of course, keep making mischief.